Hello, fellow educators. I'd like to introduce to you Miss Mayuka. Miss Mayuka, can you show us through Torrington High School's annual report? Yeah, for sure. So, Torrington High School, on a duty community. For this presentation, we're going to be talking about cultural differences and identity. Now, culture is a complex term. It's multifaceted. It can refer to practices and traditions as well as values of a group of people. So it's socially constructed. It is not, so identity is informed by a culture. So where are we located? The school is located in the southern suburbs of Wollongong. We cater for predominantly low SES students, so majority of the school's funding is government, state and federal income, and it is a culturally diverse school. So in fact, of the 729 students enrolled, 13%, according to the annual report, are Indigenous students, with 7% identifying as speakers of other languages. So how have we come to accomplish this? The school accomplishes it through a comprehensive curriculum which is broad. It covers stages 4, 5, 6 and HSC across a range of areas. It prioritises a positive environment in which parents and caregivers are welcome, and an individual focus that every student has a future. So, culture is not race. You might be thinking, race refers to biological distinctions. However, if you apply the term as a verb, it's actually referring to a judgment or a preferential judgment of one group of people based on ethnicity, culture, cultural practices, migration status, or particular traits that one group of people has against the other. So race refers to biological distinctions, which has been disproven in science. So there was an Indigenous student on PECS who actually asserted a sense of identity by lowering the national Australian flag and hoisting the Indigenous national flag above the national flag. Anderson argues that it's not uncommon for Indigenous to assert a sense of Aboriginality by tying links to land, so land ownership, since the Mabo case in 1992. This called European hegemony and land ownership into question. So this Indigenous student was asserting not just a sense of identity and culture, but also a sense of sovereignty. In law, under Article 36, under ALARC, Australian Law Reform Commission, an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander is a person who identifies as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander and is accepted by the community in which he or she lives. So it is a working definition in which teachers often abide by the idea of the Aboriginal identity. The Anti-Racial Discrimination Act, in theory, actually allows for schools to be equitable and just, in the sense that schools are no longer allowed to give preferential treatment of one student above another because of race, culture, migration status, as it defines racism as a preferential treatment of one group over another based on the Australian Human Rights Commission's notions of race. And in fact, the school was not being racist. Was the school being racist? No. Why? Because the Australian Flag Convention actually explains that by law, the Australian flag the national flag must take precedence over the Indigenous or the Torres Strait Islander flag, unless a foreign entity actually invades the country. The national flag must be flown above all others. So, was the school being racist? No. And you might be asking, what can be done to make the school more inclusive? Based on School X, discussed in the paper, a school can model its policies based off other schools to create an ethos of not just equal partnership, but even equal cultural representation. In this school, it basically targeted key areas of literacy in KLAs such as science and maths to basically promote bilingualism of the local Indigenous dialects amongst all students. So not just limiting issues of literacy, but also to help create an ethos which is community backed. So a school, or this school, can model policies based off School X, which can also hopefully create Happy Cliff. So to conclude, don't hate, educate, and good pedagogy equals not being dodgy.